Excellent. So if you are a person that gave a talk earlier today, like Irina or Matthias, Igor, Apurv, go ahead and turn on your camera if you want. If not, that's okay too. We value your anonymity. There we go. Apurv, you were playing some Rainbow Six, weren't you? Come on. Come on. Hey, that was on break. All right, cool. Anybody else who wants to turn on their camera, like Irina or Matthias, please go ahead and feel free. So one of the things that we mentioned earlier and was kind of mentioned across many of the presentations that we just wanted to bring up here was, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on methodology and process. Many of you talked about it. Heather, you mentioned having methodology to discourage bias from creeping in. You know, Curtis, in your talk right then, we saw your methodology, your process for going through it. And, you know, some of you, I think, Igor, you mentioned as well. So can you tell us about your methodology? Are you using somebody else's methodology? Is it proprietary to your organization, or did you just create it? How does that all work?
Yeah, well, I personally I pick a lot of methodologies. So yes, mainly the first resource that I found when I was creating my own, it was the famous website, the OSINTframework.com. It's classic, right?
Sure.
So I pick I like to read a lot of different resources and pick only the things that are matter to my kind of investigations, right? So I create I mentioned the mind map that I like to use. I have a mind map that serves as a template it is predefined all the information that I have to look for. So I have, for example, I'm doing an OSINT assessment on a company and I already have the steps that I want to make in order to bring that information. Okay, so that's basically the methodology that I use. That I pick a lot different places and I create my own.
Okay. Thank you, Igor. Anybody else? No. All right. That's fine. You don't have to. Um, Another thing that I wanted to ask is, I know that some of you were able to pick up and watch other people's presentations. Was there anything that struck you in those other presentations? And John, you may answer this as well. Any interesting points that struck you, aha moments like, wow, I got to start doing that, or that's an interesting way of doing that?
So Matthias here. I think even though I've been doing OSINT for quite a while, I've learned something from each and every presentation. Either something that is completely new to me, which is really amazing, or something that probably happens to a lot of us as well, seeing things that we probably forgot about. Maybe even some very basic techniques that we haven't used in quite a while. And it's always very nice to get a refresher of that and seeing other people using basic techniques, advanced techniques, and, you know, learning something every single day in this community.
Absolutely. I find that as I get farther and farther along in my career, I forget a lot of the tools that I used to know when I was doing that thing or those things, and I'm focusing on the new things I'm learning. So hearing, you know, some of the dark web tools, hearing some of the other things that were mentioned today, I was like, I got to get back into that. Any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I like to answer your two questions together. So sort of the methodology, right? I think that I like to focus the methodology sort of overarching more so than the tools. And one of the things that I always tell people when they want to get into this field is that you have to keep learning. Like you can be doing this for 10 years, but you'll never reach a time where you know everything, because everything is always changing. It's evolving all the time. So I love doing, every time there's an opportunity to come on to something like this, or, you know, some of the other, presentations out there, I love to read it and just learn what other people are doing. Because even if I have a methodology that I like and I use, there's always room for improving it. And so I love to hear other people talk about theirs.
So let me follow up on that and ask you all this question. So when I'm listening to conversation, when I'm doing that continuing education, that learning of other things by listening to your fabulous presentations, I have a Google Doc that just grows and grows and grows with, oh, I got to check out that tool that person said, and ooh, this website. Do you all keep track of things that you want to get into, things that you want to learn in a journal or some other way, and then check them off as you go through them?
Absolutely, I do.
Yeah.
You know, I'm taking notes on this stuff too. There's new things that you can learn something from other people all the time. It's so valuable to pay attention and not get stuck into, oh, I already know how to do this, and you're not keeping up and you're not learning. You're probably falling behind, right? So
Okay.
absolutely, I pay attention.
Anybody else have that list of things they want to learn?
Yeah, for me, I think it's multiple lists all over the place. Honestly, it's I think everything is sort of in a different medium nowadays. So I'll see something on Twitter and I'll just like it just because later that week I'll go back and be like, what I like, and be like,
Yep.
this is, oh yeah, I need to check this out because this is something cool. And then maybe something else I'll bookmark in my web browser, you know, but it's all sort of all over the place. But usually it's making that time to go back through, test driving it, see how it's applicable, how it works, stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely, there's huge value in sort of doing that, you know, not overshadowing stuff, not overthinking it. Just go out, find new things, test drive them, see how they work, and try and apply them to your sort of your profession.
So let me put you on the spot here, Curtis. When you do that, when I have all those tools like a perf through out there, you know, the dark web this and the onion scan and that and all, I'm like, oh, I got to try them. But when I try out those tools, I will give them X amount of time. If I can't master it or become competent or understand the tool in that amount of time, I kind of, you know, move on to the next tool. Do you impose limits like that? Like, because after a certain amount of time, I think there's a frustration factor that makes it less useful.
No, wholeheartedly. But that's also, I think, usually if you have a team, sort of say you're not good at it, but maybe introduce it to someone who might be good at it and they could get at it. So, you know, it's sort of like, hey, I'll win the next battle of coming up with something nice. But then you still have that sort of capability, right, on your team or even your friend, right? It doesn't have to be sort of a coworker or anything, but just someone in your knowledge base that maybe you can tap that actually perfected it, actually understood it, was able to use it. And then you have that sort of at your disposal next time, right? So,
Yeah.
But yeah, wholeheartedly, I sometimes get frustrated with it and like, this is not worth my time of the next thing, you know, so.
It's that phoning the friend thing, right? I think that there's value in this technique or this tool, but I don't understand it yet. Let me go talk to somebody that might know it and then they can explain it to me, type of thing.
Exactly, yeah.
I do that all the time. What about everybody else? What are your thoughts on learning and keeping up with things? How do you stay up to date on the different tools and techniques that are out there? Aside from attending and speaking at the OSINT Summit, are there sites that you use that are interesting to you or helpful? Irina, you are muted. We can unmute you, or you can unmute. Let's see. Actually, maybe SANS can unmute you. There we go. Go ahead.
In my industry, it used to be LinkedIn groups, but they were killed by LinkedIn. Functionality went down, and now we live on Facebook.
Okay.
So half of what I learn is by pressing buttons, and half I just go and check groups where people share all the time.
So you surround yourself with other people.
What?
So you surround yourself with other people that are sharing this different knowledge in Facebook now, right?
They kind of, you know, we have a group of people. It's not a surrounded group of people who together, you know, poke things, look what I found. International groups. So Facebook is a good place for it.
All
I
right.
think that brings up a good point where especially if you're on a small team or maybe even sort of working for yourself, it's really valuable to go out there and have contact with other people doing it and be in some of these groups and be able to share information like that.
I run a group with 6,500 people on Facebook called Boolean Strings, and people talk there. On LinkedIn, my group was 40,000 people, but it's just not a place.
Yeah, exactly. Once it gets to be a certain size, it's less useful because there's so much chatter necessarily.
Just a function of the section.
Here's a question from one of our attendees, and I think this is a great thing to talk about here. So within the field of OSINT, we've seen how wide it is, how broad it is, but we also know that many of you are technically deep in a certain area, whether it's CTI, dark web, or whatever. So what are your thoughts about, I'll read the question. Do you see a convergence in cyber, intelligence, and information operations within your organization? And if so, do you see a greater need for generalists, the people that can do all of those things a little bit, or specialists, or a combination of them both? And you don't have to speak for your organization. We're not holding anybody to speaking for their organization. What are your thoughts on becoming a generalist in the field and knowing a lot of things versus a specialist?
I think being a generalist is always great, because that also enables you to find people that know more than you do and actually get help from them. And there, like you said, Micah, there are so many fields in OSINT that you will never, ever at the end of your life have mastered every single field in OSINT. So having a broad understanding of the possibilities out there is very important, but at the same time, just specialize in several areas. And for me, for example, and those who follow me on Twitter and OSINT Curious, you know, I'm not going to learn Python. I just gave up. I know there are people out there that are a lot better at that. I'll rely on their finished scripts. So that's something that I thought, hey, you know, then I'll just concentrate on other things that I'm better at. And every time I want to do something with Python, I'll just go ask you, Micah, or just someone else.
Fair enough. What do other people think? Okay, let me make it more personal.
Well, I'll
In
take
your
some of that.
personal careers, are you generalists or specialists? Go ahead, John. Why don't you start?
I think, as Matthias said, it is helpful to have at least an understanding of some scope and not just be such a specialist that you don't know much outside of your specialty. I don't think I've worked in many places where you even had many people like that were completely functional. You almost had to have someone, if there was such a person, to liaise with them, right? I think it's very helpful to have some expansion of your awareness and have at least a few things you specialize in, as well as having some of those generalist people that touch on a lot of different areas and kind of can make things flow together. I think you need a combination, really.
Other thoughts?
I think like having knowledge of different things is good. I mean, you don't have to be a specialist in all the things. Like when I was starting in threat intel and dark web research, I hated NLP ML side, but at some point I had to learn NLP, and I'm doing that. And while I was learning, I got to know many people that were specializing in that. So I have friends that I can call and I can message if I have any problem understanding something. So
Okay, thank you. And thank you. I appreciate you all sharing these thoughts. We have not scripted any of this, so it's just, you know, ad hoc. Let me ask a question. So right now in our panel channel, somebody has asked about documentation. They've asked about how you organize the notes, the images, the URLs that you obtain when you're doing your OSINT investigations, because as they say, it's really easy to get down into the weeds, into those rabbit holes, and forget to document or just get too focused on documentation, so you're not actually doing the open source intelligence. So I'll throw it out there. I know that somebody uses a mind map, and I'm cool with that. Why don't you guys start, Igor? How do you actually do your documentation? Is it all mind map, or are you using some other things?
The short answer is use a mind map.
Okay.
Because I use this, and depending on the mind map tool that you are using, it accepts to the image, right? So as I said previously, I use a pre-created template that I made for me, that has a lot. I put a lot of categories and things that I gotta do on investigation, and like this category I have to put the images, in this category I have to put the links, and this is just this put together, etc. So the mind map, it helps a lot, depending on how you build it. It is easy to get lost on a mind map if you don't build it properly, but it's basically the tool that I use to keep track of all the information that I gather. Sometimes I put on my private channel on Telegrams, but mainly it's the mind map.
Okay, so I think for your investigations, you have that that knowledge of these are the types of things I might need to collect.
Yeah, I
about my
like to
target.
connect things, right? So the mind map is useful to pick one point and connect to another one. So
Okay.
it's easily to see two different information on the same place.
Yep,
For me,
show
it's
those
good.
relationships, right?
Yeah.
It's not a case file, it's not a link analysis tool, but it can show those manual
Yeah.
links. But what I was getting at was you have this, if I'm researching a person, I need to collect this information. Or if I'm researching something on this social media network, I
Yes.
have that. But I have a feeling when Curtis goes out or when Heather goes out on their investigations and they're doing things, it's more of a, let me just see where this investigation takes me. And you're more at the whim of the investigation. Is that right, Heather?
Absolutely. And I think that what I use really depends on who my consumer is, like who's my customer, right?
Okay.
So if it's something that I think is going to end up in a court of law, I guess I can plug Hunchly. I love Hunchly, so I use that. But there, I also have a OneNote Chrome extension, which is great for sort of, you know, organizing all of the places that I go and all of the things that I look at if I'm not so much concerned about the, you know, preservation of data, but more kind of just seeing where it's taking me. So I think it really kind of depends on what I'm investigating. And I'm sorry to say that I have checklists, right? So if I'm doing a person, if I'm, you know, if my target is a person or if it's an event, you know, I do sometimes I do live stuff and I have like a checklist. Like I want to make sure I'm checking here and here and here. I kind of do that and mark them off as I go. So that's probably like old lady stuff, but that's how I do it.
If so, then I too am an old lady because I have the checklist too. I mean, it's
the
not
mind map work as a checklist for me.
exactly.
The same.
Right. So you have that template. In fact, Sin Windy, I don't know if you know him. He has these attack surface diagrams that are out there that are flowcharts. And what he says is these are for social media platform. And these are the different things that he knows he needs to check off before he leaves that platform, whether it's profile information or other. So there's lots of us women out there, Heather.
Of course, that I'm not going to let the mind map limit me. Sometimes I just want to know where the investigations can go, and if I have not documented yet what I found, I put it on the mind map. So the next time I found this, I already know that might be that information. So each investigation helps the mind map to be better.
Yeah. So you're evolving your process.
Yeah.
Right? Excellent. Curtis, did you have something you want to say?
No, I mean, it's more or less sort of an echo chamber because I have a checklist as well. You know, I go for sort of the low hanging fruit initially. If that results in answering some of my questions, you know, stop there. But you know, just keep going. I think in Mike Basil's book, like at the end, he has those nice sort of flow charts of, you know, go after username, where does that lead, stuff like that. I've kind of have those memorized by now to where maybe I don't have that written down, but just, you know, in my head, like, okay, did I check this? Did I do this? And yeah, so it's more or less what you guys all have said before. So
cool. All right.
Speaking of old people and old school, am I the only one that actually takes notes, handwritten notes? Because I find in a lot of cases that really helps me out rather than putting something in a mind map or a diagram. I'm just writing stuff all the time and I tend to be more creative then. Now, that's great, seeing two people hold up notes.
Yeah.
I do type notes, but I definitely keep notes as I'm doing stuff and just kind of helps me with my flow. I don't necessarily feel like I have to drop everything into a document or mind map or something like that. Definitely back in the days when I was just doing PI work and out doing surveillance and stuff, you couldn't just type, you know, I was always chicken scratch handwriting as things were going on and then had to transform that into a report. But now that I'm sitting at a desk most of the time, I can type.
Yeah. Well, and I think it also depends on what your organization wants you to use too, right? So I might love Hunchly or whatever, but if my organization is a Microsoft organization and they want me to use OneNote, that's what I'm going to use. So, all right. Did anybody else want to comment on that? If not, we'll go on to round two. There's not really a round two. It's just, all right. So what I would like you to all to think about right now is your favorite, okay? And I'm going to ask you for two favorites. One, your favorite website that's OSINT related and safe to mention on here. And the second is your favorite tool. And then the third is your favorite technique. So website, tool, technique. And we're not going to hold you to this. I mean, this is just something that, what's the top of your head? And I'll go ahead and I'll start. My favorite tool right now is Draw.io, which allows me to make really, really easy, free flowcharts for my processes. And so that's Draw.io. My favorite website right now, I don't know why, but it's osintcurio.us. I don't know. I mean, it's just one of those weird things. And my favorite technique is it has to be user enumeration and, you know, doing the what's my name project. All right. And you don't have to answer all three, but you can. Who's next? Who wants to step up?
I'll go and give it a shot.
All right, Curtis.
So favorite tool, sort of paralleling you, I would say is Maltico. For sort of link analysis. At PwC, we have really cool transforms set up to where we can pull a lot of data. So we can really—
Can you tell us what PwC means?
Yeah, PricewaterhouseCoopers, my employer. So,
okay.
Yeah, I think I just got $15 for plugging them there. No, no, but it's pretty cool if you can actually write some transforms for that, because you can really enrich sort of your data, and actually it's still just a basic link analysis tool at the end of the day, but it's pretty powerful. Website, I would have to go, I think Open Corporates, going back to corporation records, it's pretty cool. I know it's a secondary source, so usually I like to go after the primary source, but it's that nice sort of jumping off point of going after something. So yeah, what was the third one? Tool, website?
Tool, and then like a technique or something like that.
Technique. I don't know if this technique still works, but you used to be able to find, if you have a LinkedIn profile via, plug it into, it's a Sales Navigator. That doesn't work anymore. So I think you can actually do it through an Outlook account, if that still works.
Yep.
Plugging it in. So that's pretty neat. So
thanks, Curtis.
Yeah.
Who else has a favorite site, favorite tool, favorite technique?
I do. Well, you stole my OSINT Curious, so I'm going to go with my second one. I love Bellingcat. I love reading Bellingcat stuff. It's really interesting to me. Those are the two websites because I like to, like I said, I like to learn how other people are doing things. My favorite technique, well, I would say I'm a big fan of phone numbers, right? If somebody gives me the option of a social security number or something like that, or a telephone number, I take their phone number every single time.
Okay.
Every single time. Yeah. So phone numbers, and then what was the other one?
Technique.
Well, I don't know. I have to get back to you on that one. I guess it kind of depends on what I'm doing.
Cool. And just for those of you that are following along, in the panel channel, our wonderful SANS people are typing up and posting the links to a lot of the things that we're saying. So Bellingcat was just put in there. osintcurio.us was in there as well. So check the panel channel in the Slack. All right, Purav, you've been strangely quiet, and I'm going to call you out. Favorite tool, favorite technique, favorite website, your choice.
Favorite website that I have in mind, I think OSINT framework, or OSINT framework. Favorite tool, I think Scrapey. I mean, I use it every time to scrape something.
Yeah, that's a great tool.
Technique, I don't have like a proper technique in mind, so I think I will pass on that.
That's absolutely fine. All right, Irina, did you want to say something? We'll unmute you. Hang on, let's unmute you. We'll get SANS to unmute you. Hang on one second, or you can unmute you.
My
There we go.
favorite tool is Google Custom Search Engines.
Ooh,
It's
yeah, good.
fascinating, and you guys should learn about it. We have published a book, but we also create them and stuff. Can I say just why?
Yeah,
Very,
go ahead.
very briefly. So custom search engines are built on top of Google, and Google searches for pages with titles and content, not much structure. Custom search engines have special operators that allow you to search pieces for structure. You can search part of the surface web for people who have these names, work there, live there, stuff. And it's so little known. So I really want to promote this stuff.
And
Yeah.
just so everybody's aware, custom search engines, or CSEs, are now called programmable search engines. Or
Yeah, I don't
PSEs.
like the name. It's
I don't either. I like the CSEs, but
Yeah,
if people go to search
fine.
for it, they need to find it. All right, Irina, what's a
And
website?
on top of that, we built a tool on using custom search engines APIs. We built a tool called Social List that grabs lists of social profiles from any network. You give it your parameters, and you can export it and populate with context. Check it out if you want.
All right, Social Lists.
The site, I don't know about the site. I receive a newsletter in our industry called Recruiting Brain Food, but it goes beyond recruiting very much. We talk about, inventions, where we're going, what diversity is, excellent stuff. And what was the last?
That was basically it. Yeah, you covered it.
Technique is
Yeah,
cross-referencing. My favorite technique is having a list of email addresses that I grabbed somewhere and cross-reference against LinkedIn, for example. Know who these people are. Cross-reference against other stuff.
Very good. Thank you. Anybody else? All right.
So I think my favorite website is, I think it answers two questions at once. It's GitHub.
Oh,
Oh yeah.
Why GitHub?
Because every day there's a new tool. Every day there's a new. I think there you can find your technique, your new technique, and your new tool. So that for me, there's no such a thing as a favorite tool ever. This is if there is any, is a tool that I have been using recently. For it's more like a offensive security tool. I don't know. I'm not sure how to spell it, how to pronounce it. But the user is Jesse. I will put the link in the chat here. So it's Osmidio, I think. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I like this tool because it brings a lot of information from a website on offensive security engagement.
Okay.
So I just put the link here in the chat. So I think it's GitHub, the website. This is the tool. The technique, I would say that would be the username reverse search, because I think it's cool to know where people have accounts. So you do the enumeration and you see, oh, this people has account here. That's weird. I don't think I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it's cool.
Cool. All right. Matthias, you got
Well, you took Draw.io from me, but that is basically my favorite software at the moment. When it comes to sites, basically a search for the hashtag OSINT on Twitter, because that allows me to learn something new every single day, look into other interesting investigations. And the favorite technique is always the next one I have to learn in one of my investigations.
All right. Okay, I'm going to ask, I have two more questions and then I'm going to let y'all go. All right. The first one is one from one of our attendees. And the question is, what about bad people? I mean, you all have just given some really good talks here that show how to find information about people, about IPs, about domains, about dark web. Are you concerned about that bad people are going to get these techniques and use them? Or is that something that, we're not worried about? And I'm kind of throwing you under the bus here. I personally am not worried. I have a stance on this, but I'd like to hear from you. And I think our listeners would too. Thoughts?
I think that that there are a lot of smart bad guys out there, so I think that knowing that you have to sort of stay one step ahead is a good motivation to sort of keep improving what you're doing. But yeah, I mean, bad guys look up, you know, there's somebody wants to find his ex-girlfriend to stalk or something like that. Like they can easily, you know, go online and get tips for doing that. And they can use some of these techniques that we've talked about to do those sorts of things. So, you know, that's a risk in, you know, I mean, that's just sort of how the world is, right? You just have to know that what we can do, bad guys can do too.
Yeah, I mean, there's a great debate about this in InfoSec about offensive tools and things, but certainly in the OSINT space, it's open source information, and there are a lot of smart bad guys, like Heather said, you know, that are doing things like Igor discussed in his presentation. They do exactly that sort of stuff, right? They have.
John, you got to stop doing that to me, man. You're like, there are many bad guys like Heather, and I was like, wait, and then you just said it like Igor. I'm like,
there are
I
many
know.
bad guys like Micah.
There you go. Yeah, use your commas in different places, please.
Okay, sorry. So and there's a lot of focus on doing reconnaissance and doing OSINT in these criminal organizations, just individuals. You know, you go and look into some of these hacker forums and the dark websites like a perv is digging around in, that I root around in, and they'll have a whole section on doing OSINT. You know, this is very much something they're into doing as well. But I don't know that hiding the information, like certainly I have some special tools and things that I do and use that I don't necessarily publicize, but you know, I don't think there's much point in trying to hide certain bits of OSINT from others. I think it's more valuable to share that information. I think most of the people that we have in our group here, for example, are doing good things with this, right? So on the balance, you're doing more good than harm.
Okay. Thanks, John. Any other thoughts? Okay. Last question for you. And in order to leave the Zoom, you have to answer this question. Sorry.
Boy.
Our conference, our rules, darn it. Okay, so we're going to start up with Curtis. Curtis, okay, everybody has to answer this one question. What's one thing that you want to learn in OSINT better, or become more competent at, or learn deeper? Can be anything. Curtis.
I would say a little bit more of the automation of stuff. I'm in the technical field, but often put that to the wayside and go with what I know, which is more of the sort of manual stuff. So I think, yeah, a little bit more automated Python scripts, what it may be. But yeah, automation. Automation.
Cool. Thank you, Curtis. Igor.
I think my answer is similar to Curtis, because I think I have to improve better my programming skills in order to automate some tasks. I already do some minor stuff, but I think I have to improve better my programming.
Cool. Approve.
Okay. I mean, contrary to both Igor and Curtis, I do know automating and programming, but I'm a little weak in manual investigation. So I would like to improve that stuff.
I see some like relationship building we're doing here. Perfect, Igor. Igor, perfect. Work together. You're going to make each other smarter. That's terrific. Okay. So more manual techniques. That's absolutely fine. All right, Heather.
Okay, well, I hate to sound like a broken record, but I am committed to 2021. I want to learn Python.
What?
So, yeah, that is, I don't know anything about it, but I love what, you know, I actually, when I'm doing like big data sets that I can't, you know, my Excel has 1.4, like a limit, right? So I have to, you know, call up these folks. I was trying to do it in Power BI and that just does not do it for me. So I've been convinced that I need to learn Python. So anybody wants to send me recommendations for where to start doing that, go ahead and send me the chat. I'm open to recommendations.
Cool. So hit Heather up in her hallway and send her Python recommendations. I will say this, though, that if you're analyzing big data sets, you might not have to learn Python. There's a lot of tools out there like Google Big Data, Aleph, and some other ones that can help you. Justin Sites might be able to help you out too. I mean, just point you in the right direction with large data sets. All right, Matthias, and then we'll end up with Irina. So Matthias, what do you want to learn?
I would like to have a better understanding of Chinese social media and the Chinese internet landscape.
Okay. Very specific. I like how focused you are. All right. Irina, what would you like to learn in this coming year?
I think mobile, doing stuff on mobile, emulation on the screen and so forth. But I like learning. I'm just a junkie for that stuff.
Absolutely. All right. John TerBush, I haven't forgotten about you. What's one thing you want to learn?
One thing I am working on is a bit of that coding and scripting, not just for OSINT, but also for doing reverse engineering of malware and things, and something that can help me on different aspects of the kind of work I do.
Excellent. And for myself, I want to learn more about what's happening tomorrow here in the OSINT Summit. Tomorrow we have some amazing speakers, and I would like to thank each one of you for not only giving excellent talks, but being available at the end here, participating in the Slack, talking with the participants. That interactivity is something that I think with this global virtual app platform allows a lot more access to you all. So thank you so much for making this summit so good on day one. And come back for day two tomorrow, when we are going to start off the day with something that I think you are going to love. It is Chris Poulter, who is going to be giving a very technical talk on JavaScript and making your own tools. So for those of you participants here that said that you wanted to learn programming, JavaScript isn't quite Python. It's not anywhere near Python. And Chris and I constantly have this conversation back and forth about Python being better, and he's not agreeing with that. But tomorrow, Chris is going to really walk through the basics of how to get into JavaScript programming. And then he's going to show you some really neat things with that. And then tomorrow we have so many other great talks by Nico Dakins and Jeff Lomas and so many other people. Come back. We're going to be starting tomorrow and doing more things. Also, please, please, please fill out your SANS eval. We want to know what you thought of Curtis and Heather and all of the other wonderful speakers today, what you thought of our platform, and what you would like to see in the next OSINT Summit coming up next year. So please fill out the evals. We do take a look at that. And John, did I miss anything?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I think tomorrow we might also talk about some of the results of the poll that we put out, right?
Yep.
But yeah, you want to come back tomorrow. We have a lot of great stuff on tap for you tomorrow.
Awesome. Thanks, John. Thank you to our speakers. Thank you to our wonderful, wonderful SANS Summit staff, who there's no way we could have done this without you. And come back tomorrow, everybody. Bye. Good night.
Bye-bye.